Chapter 6. The siblings reunited. This was the fourth time in 10 years that Lady Elara Thorne had seen Lord Cale Thorne. She had not left Valoria since she arrived at age 13. Cale, meanwhile, was in the Swordfall marches, and in the decade that followed, he had fought in battles to the north and the west, only visiting her once. That year Cale was 17. 7 years had passed since the siblings had separated, and the child had grown into a young man. He was on his way to battle. It was pouring rain, and the water streamed down his armor as the young man pushed through the mist to stand before her. The first thought to enter Lady Elara's mind when she saw him was not of her father, but of her mother. Both siblings had inherited their mother's features. With his military duties, Cale could not stay long, and he came and went in a hurry. The second time they saw each other was at her wedding. 3 years had passed, and the youthful demeanor of the boy had faded. The young man had come to escort the bride. He wasn't wearing armor or a sword but fine brocade. His skin, like his voice, was rough and tough, as if worn down by the wind and sand. "Lara, you make yourself look pretty. I'll carry you to the carriage later," he said, revealing his white teeth in a grin. But she didn't get to feel him carry her. Instead she saw his corpse. That was their third meeting. She had not expected their fourth meeting to happen so quickly. Lady Elara reached out and cradled Cale's face, examining him carefully in the lamplight from the walkway. "My little treasure," she called him by his childhood nickname. Everyone in the Thorne family called him Cale, but she had given him the nickname, My Little Treasure. He had been a premature baby, no bigger than a large rat when he was born. She had watched him grow from that size, and even though they were separated for a decade, they exchanged letters every month. They were the most important people in each other's lives. She had watched him grow up and then watched him die. It was heartbreaking. Cale did not feel his sister's sorrow or joy. He looked up at her, his face in her hands, with a look of surprise. "Lara, what happened to you?" he cried out. He had rushed here as soon as he heard of her disappearance. News of her condition after she arrived home had not yet reached him. He was terrified when he saw her, wrapped in cloths from head to toe. "I'm fine," Lady Elara said, holding his shoulders and speaking softly. "Don't be afraid." How could she be fine? A lie like that couldn't fool a child. Cale stared at her, but he didn't question her. He knew she was lying, but he also believed she had a reason for it. What a clever child. A child this clever shouldn't have died like that. Lady Elara held his shoulders. "Something happened, but I'm fine now. I'll find a way to fix it." Cale nodded. Lady Elara took his hand and led him into the room, calling for Mistress Glynis. Mistress Glynis came in, lit the lamps, took Cale's cape, and brought him a cup of warm tea. Cale held the cup with both hands and drank it down in one go. Even though he had been well cared for on the road, traveling day and night was difficult for a 10-year-old. Sitting by the lamp without his cape, his haggard face was visible, and his eyes still held a hint of panic, like a lamb that had just escaped from a pack of wolves. Now that he was with family and it was late at night, he should be allowed to get some rest and talk about everything in the morning. A 13-year-old Lady Elara would have done that, but the 23-year-old Lady Elara would not, because tomorrow was not guaranteed. Mistress Glynis put the teacup on the table and went out, closing the door behind her and standing guard in the courtyard. "Who brought you back?" Lady Elara asked. Cale sat up straight in his chair. "Lord Galen told me you were in trouble. Lord Corvin immediately told me to come back, and our third eldest uncle came with me." Lady Elara remembered Lord Galen, but they had not interacted much. After all, her father was still alive, so she didn't need to do anything. She was silent for a moment, her mind going back to him. Lord Galen had been her father's most trusted aide. Before her father died, he entrusted the siblings to him. The word he used was entrust, not instruct. It was unfortunate that he had died so early. At the end of that year, or perhaps the beginning of the next, Cale had written a detailed letter about it, expressing his sadness and unease. The death of familiar people always brings unease. To comfort him, Lady Elara had sent her 3 most trusted servants back to the Swordfall marches. And that was that. After her most beloved father's death, the passing of others was something she could accept. But now, looking at it again, it felt different. Lord Galen was a different man, and his death was a different matter. Cale's simple and clear answer revealed that Lord Galen was the first to receive the news, not through the Thorne family. The soldiers escorting her took his orders, meaning her father had a contingent of troops under Lord Galen's command. Lord Galen had not consulted the third elder or anyone else before telling Cale directly. He only recognized and took orders from Cale. And he had done so because he believed Lady Elara was important, and when an important person was in trouble, another important person had to be told. Lord Galen did the right thing, Lady Elara said, nodding. A smile appeared on Cale's face. Lord Galen was right. Sister, you don't blame me. Lady Elara stroked his head. You cared so much about my life that you disregarded your own. You are so good to me, how could I blame you? Cale's actions were a little dangerous, and as his older sister, she should have chastised him for taking such a risk. But avoiding danger didn't prevent death either. If they were to die, they would die together. When she heard of his death in her past life, she had refused to listen to her servants' pleas to flee, and she had run straight to the front courtyard. Now, if they were to live, they would live together. Lord Corvin also said I did the right thing, Cale said happily. He heard the news and immediately told me to come back. He even convinced our third eldest uncle to come with me. Lady Elara's face was wrapped in black cloth, revealing only her eyes, nostrils, and mouth. Cale couldn't see her expression, but the hand on his head was withdrawn. Don't call him uncle, Lady Elara said. Cale looked up at her, his eyes wide with surprise. Lady Elara paused. You should call him Lord Corvin. Cale blinked and whispered. Sister, you don't want to marry into the Blackwood family, do you? Without waiting for Lady Elara to speak, he straightened up and slapped the armrest. If you don't want to, then don't. The last words were drawn out, making them sound light and amusing. Lady Elara closed her eyes slightly. A tear slipped down her cheek and wet the black cloth covering her face. Cale's movements and tone were exactly like their father's. Of course, she didn't want to marry him, and she wouldn't. But it seemed to take a great deal of effort for Lady Elara to open her eyes. She looked at Cale, who was trying to act like a grown-up. I don't want to, she said. Cale slapped the armrest again. Then don't. This time, before he could finish, a hiss escaped from Lady Elara's mouth as she tilted to the side, her hand pressing on her shoulder. Sister! Cale cried, jumping up. What's wrong? There was a crash. Cale knocked over the table as he jumped up, and the teacup on it shattered. Mistress Glynis rushed in and helped Cale support Lady Elara. I'm fine, Lady Elara said, her hand on her shoulder as she sat up straight. Then she saw the terrified look on the faces of Cale and Mistress Glynis. Their eyes were fixed on her raised arm, where her sleeve had slid down, revealing a patchwork of bright red, festering sores on her pale skin.